In Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf threatens Hyrule with a new power called Gloom, which is distinct from Breath of the Wild's Calamity Ganon and its Malice. On the surface, Malice and Gloom might seem synonymous, and while certain parallels do exist, examining their original Japanese terms reveals significant differences in their defining traits. Gloom's formidable potency transcends mere harm. It devours vitality, withering health and extinguishing life itself. While fleeting exposure to light can mend minor afflictions, direct excessive contact with it reaps far graver consequences. But why is Gloom so overwhelmingly powerful, and how does it effortlessly sunder the Master Sword? Why can Ganondorf even use Gloom in the first place, and what happened to Malice, as it were, in Breath of the Wild? To unearth the true nature of Gloom and to better understand its demonic properties, let's delve into the original Japanese version of Tears of the Kingdom and unravel what Gloom actually is. In Breath of the Wild, Calamity Ganon's Malice, known in Japanese as Onnen, transcends mere malevolence. It is the manifestation of deep-seated hatred and resentment, a concept intrinsically rooted in Buddhism and the cycle of samsara. The Japanese word Onnen signifies the enduring animosity that persists within this cycle of death and rebirth. It is the lingering grudge, the essence of one's hatred that can carry over into subsequent lives. This residual negativity can influence future actions, guiding souls down a path of darkness even after their earthly journey ends. In the Legend of Zelda universe, Onnen isn't solely confined to Ganon or Ganondorf, however. It is a profound force that can manifest from various entities, irrespective of their connection to the Demon King. This hatred acts as the potent fuel for vengeful spirits and furious souls in Japanese culture, propelling them towards even deeper, relentless anger and malice. Interestingly, this very same Japanese term emerges in a similar context in Skyward Sword. Demise, who harbors intense hatred, employs the same Japanese term in his dying moments, drawing a compelling link between the sinister energies that course through the Zelda series and the timeless Buddhist concept of enduring resentment. Shortly after the downfall of the Calamity in Breath of the Wild, an insidious dark substance known as Gloom began seeping from beneath Hyrule Castle, afflicting an increasing number of people and causing them to fall ill. Hyrule's Princess Zelda and the Master Sword-wielding hero, Link, descend together into the Forbidden Depths in order to find and eliminate the source of the gloom that plagues the kingdom. As the pair continue their descent, the origin of this corruptive substance is unearthed. Deep within the forgotten imprisoning chamber lies the petrified form of the ancient Demon King Ganondorf, a malevolence sealed away across the eons. It's from this dread entity that the corrosive gloom originates. As Link and Zelda draw near, the hand of Hyrule's first king exhausts the last of its power and falls to the ground, releasing the seal that had ensnared Ganondorf since times immemorial, catalyzing the reawakening of the Demon King. Ganondorf hurls a concentrated onslaught of this malefic force at Zelda. Luckily, Link is able to avert a dire fate for her by deflecting the gloom. However, Ganondorf wastes no time with a second assault that, this time, engulfs Link, leaving him grievously wounded and his life essence stripped away by the vicious torrent. A climax of darkness unfolds as a final burst of Ganondorf's gloom hurtles towards them. Despite being in an extremely weakened and vulnerable state, the courageous hero of Hyrule steps in once again, determined to protect Hyrule and its princess. However, what happens next is unprecedented. The legendary Master Sword that he wields, a blade that's endowed with celestial blessings and is renowned for its demon-eradicating power, is utterly overwhelmed by the force of the Demon King's gloom. For the first time, the blade crafted to obliterate darkness is completely decimated by the very force it was designed to vanquish. Its shards scatter, leaving Link defenseless to prevent what was to come next. The word for gloom in the original Japanese text of Tears of the Kingdom is Shouki, and has a multifaceted significance within the Japanese language and culture that, when directly rendered into English, yields translations such as miasma, bad air, or toxic gas. Nonetheless, the intricacies and subtleties attributed to the Japanese word prove challenging to convey through a single translation alone. The localization team most certainly encountered these obstacles too, as many times when the word Shouki is used in the Japanese text of the game, they've had no choice but to replace it with an English alternative. For example, at the beginning of the game, when Ganondorf warns that the Master Sword, a blade so easily shattered by his power, cannot save Link from him, the Japanese version specifically employs the word Shouki instead of power. This localization choice makes sense, especially given that Ganondorf's power alludes to what we've just witnessed harming Link. This is because the nuances of the Japanese term don't transfer well to English, and even with a literal translation, it might sound less impactful if Ganondorf were to say something like, "a blade that shatters against my gloom," or "a blade that shatters against my bad air." Another translation challenge arises during the showdown with Phantom Ganon at Hyrule Castle. In English, he describes Link as the fabled swordsman who endured his corruption. However, in Japanese, the term used in place of corruption is once again Shouki, which is also coupled with another Japanese term that elaborates on the effect this darkness had on Link. But before delving into that, let's explore how Shouki is authentically depicted in Japanese culture and what it reveals about Ganondorf. In Japanese mythology, Shouki typically manifests as a mist-like or vaporous substance arising from polluted natural water sources and tainted air. When humans inhale or come into contact with it, the body's equilibrium can be disrupted, potentially leading to disease or illness. Traditionally, it is regarded as the root of severe and even fatal ailments caused by parasites that commonly infect living organisms. It siphons a being's vitality, which is a characteristic also reflected in the Gloom-born illness quest in Tears of the Kingdom. Infected individuals often succumb to high fevers, while those exposed may also suffer life-threatening illnesses and inadvertently transmit it to others in their vicinity. The effect that Shouki has on an individual varies based on their vitality. For instance, an older person with diminished physical resilience could experience profound effects from even the slightest exposure to the corrupting air, while a young and more physically able person would be more likely to withstand it. This elucidates to how Link and Zelda managed to endure the depths beneath Hyrule Castle at the beginning of the game, as it would make sense that their past endeavors in Breath of the Wild would have strengthened them as individuals, thus granting them some resistance. This insight might also suggest a potential reason why Link can accumulate more hearts in Tears of the Kingdom. In the context of lore, this increase aligns with the concept that hearts symbolize Link's vitality. Thus, it may be reasonable to infer that in order to confront the origins of Shouki and endure a greater extent of it while facing Ganondorf, Link requires even more hearts compared to his previous exploits in Breath of the Wild. Though, while it is possible to venture into the Gloom's origin with only 4, the lack of hearts make it appropriately life-endangering. Living organisms, animals, or any other entities that are polluted with Shouki thrive in areas where it's more prominent, specifically where it pollutes the air or water. This naturally significantly heightens the risk of it being transmitted to humans, or to other animals or living organisms too. This may explain a potential reason why demons who are enveloped with the substance congregate in the depths as they do. Considering this property, it would make sense that the dark, mostly concealed environment of the depths makes for a prime location for it to flourish, and thus the perfect place for demons to be in abundance. Shouki has also made appearances in contemporary Japanese media that further illustrate these characteristics, including works such as Inuyasha, where demons can exploit it to decay and even disintegrate objects, and in several Studio Ghibli films, some of which have influenced the concepts found in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. In Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, for instance, the lethal gas filled with spores from the Sea of Corruption, a substance that suffocates both human and animal life, is also referred to as Shouki in Japanese. And in Tears of the Kingdom, it doesn't merely deplete Link's hearts like Malice does in Breath of the Wild, but it incapacitates and can even obliterate them, depicting the asphyxiating essence of this evil. Demons in some media have also been portrayed reanimating their victims, filling their corpses with Shouki, very similar to how Ganondorf resummons his demons during a blood moon. It is, therefore, an evil force that's closely related to demons and evil entities, adding to the rationale behind its alignment with demons in Tears of the Kingdom. Shouki holds a distinct connection to a specific type of malicious energy in Japanese culture known as Jaki. While I've previously elaborated on this term and its importance in the Zelda series in a separate video, this term is the same as what's used in Japanese to refer to Ganon's malice in earlier Zelda titles that predate 2006's Twilight Princess. The term Jaki finds its origins in the stories of an ancient Japanese oni or demon known as Amanojaku. This evil spirit is able to draw out the darkest desires concealed deep within the hearts of individuals, compelling them to commit malicious acts. Amanojaku are often characterized as evil Japanese demons called oni, or types of specters called yokai, that specialize in mischief and causing spiritual contamination across the world. We observe a similar phenomenon in A Link to the Past and Majora's Mask, where the dark energy emanating from Ganon and Majora is also referred to as Jaki in Japanese. A Link to the Past's official Japanese manual describes how Ganon's Jaki is what caused humans with greed in their hearts to disappear, while Majora in Majora's Mask exploits this energy to manipulate the Skull Kid, amplifying his mischievous deeds by drawing out his darkest desires, a topic that I've also delved into in a separate video. Jaki is often depicted as a dark or black smoke that gradually spreads and consumes. It signifies negative or sinister energy believed to bring harm, illness, or misfortune. In traditional Japanese beliefs, this energy is linked to impurity and can be directed towards individuals, places, or objects. In essence, Jaki represents the malicious manipulative energy surrounding an evil entity, sort of like a demonic aura. While every demon possesses the potential to emit Jaki, it's only the profoundly evil ones that can skillfully manipulate and amplify it. A demon with great control over this power is capable of destroying or decaying objects, manipulating others, and forcing entities to show the evil side of themselves, and can even affect the very spirit and willpower of the individual. This corruptive aspect of Jaki finds its embodiment within Shouki, and in the Japanese version of Tears of the Kingdom, there are further terms that mirror how these concepts are truly depicted in Japanese culture. Take, for instance, the restorative food prepared with ingredients that possess resistance to the gloom, like the sunny fried greens. In the description box, the English text tells us that hearts are damaged by gloom, while in Japanese, the term used to describe how gloom affects a person is mushibamu, which signifies an invasion of one's body and spirit, a dark force that persistently gnaws away at life and deteriorates one's physical and mental well-being. The Hyrule Compendium's entry on Ganondorf employs the term okasararu to elucidate the effect of his Shouki on living organisms. This word is also the same word used by Phantom Ganondorf in Japanese when he describes a Link as the fabled swordsman who endured his corruption, and is typically used to describe an ailment that infiltrates both the mind and the body, rotting them and withering them away. The effects imparted by this evil can be countered through purifying influences, much like what happens when Link obtains a Light of Blessing in a Shrine of Light, or Shrine of Exorcism as they are called in the Japanese version. But why then did the Master Sword, a blade imbued with ancient sacred power to vanquish demons, prove ineffective? Well, firstly, the potency of an entity's Jaki directly correlates with the corrosive force of their Shouki, and certain demons possess the rare ability to manipulate it to such an extent where they can dissolve anything in their path. Such mastery over it is considered to be exceptionally rare, and is associated with a figure of great malevolence, like a demon king. Ganondorf himself embodies pure evil, and is tainted by his own overpowering desires, which is described by another Buddhist-heavy term in the Japanese version of the games, a concept I've explored extensively in a previous video. His willingness to go to extremes to fulfill these desires, and his obsessive attachment to seizing dominion over the Hyrule Kingdom is what endows Ganondorf's Shouki with formidable power. This is a crucial factor contributing to a potential explanation as to why the Master Sword succumbs to Ganondorf's evil. Breath of the Wild reveals that bathing the Master Sword in sacred power allows any inflicted damage, including that dealt by Malice, to be healed by the flow of time. In Tears of the Kingdom, however, Ganondorf melts most of the blade away, distorting the demon-eradicating sword into a mere fragment of its former self. To recover from the overpowering influence of Shouki, an enormous volume of sacred energy and an extended passage of time are imperative, and thus, having discovered her purpose after arriving in the ancient past, Zelda consumes her secret stone. In this forbidden act of draconification, she is subsequently transformed into the Light Dragon. This pivotal event facilitates the infusion of an immense quantity of sacred energy into the eroded Master Sword over many millennia, ultimately leading to the sword's restoration. By the time it reaches Link in the present day, he can once again draw his legendary blade once more. The description given to the restored Master Sword in the English text highlights this revitalization. However, it seems that this isn't the only effect Zelda's sacrifice had on the blade. The Japanese text explicitly states that the sword now possesses the capacity to combat Shouki, stressing how it previously lacked such resistance. Link now has the power to fight and defend against what he couldn't before. This transformation is reflected in the final showdown, where Link is able to deflect the previously life-threatening gloom back at Ganondorf, showcasing the evolution of the Master Sword, now empowered with a new attribute, making it stronger and more formidable than ever before. Infusing the Master Sword with sacred power over an extended duration seems to not just restore it, but also purify it by cleansing it of its defects and damage inflicted by Malice, Gloom, or other demonic sources. Shouki and other invading impure substances bear a connection to the concept of kegare, a fundamental term in Japanese Shintoism that pertains to impurity and defilement that represents a lessening or depletion of energy, capability, and creativity. This impurity is despised by kami, another Japanese term rooted in Shintoism, which is often rendered as god or deity in English and is also the very same word that defines the Zonai in Japanese. However, kami in Japanese mythology represents a unique and distinctive concept, quite different from Western perceptions of gods and deities. Unlike the anthropomorphic and often singular gods of many Western religions, kami are more akin to natural forces or spirits, closely intertwined with the everyday lives of people. Entities referred to as kami encompass a wide spectrum, ranging from the divine spirits responsible for the creation of the heavens and the earth to the revered ancestors of humanity, and even extend to encompass all aspects of the natural world, such as the wind, rocks, animals, and plants, similar to the Deku Tree or Hylia, both of which are referred to as kami in Japanese. Kami are not always all-powerful beings. Instead, they are considered immanent and approachable, emphasizing a deep connection between the spiritual and earthly realms. They have been portrayed as coexisting with humanity, and interestingly, they are not always eternal. The deep relationship between kami and humans is defined through musubi, a term which refers to the concept of the interconnecting or binding force that brings things together and gives rise to creation, growth, and harmony. It is often described as the force of joining or connecting elements, beings, and nature in the world. Notably, the Zonai, who after descending from the heavens were perceived perceived as great figures by the Hylians. They were gods, or rather kami, who possessed unique otherworldly powers and established that same musubi with the ancient Hylians, as described in Zelda's Japanese account of the ancient murals beneath Hyrule Castle at the game's outset. Zelda describes this connection in English as a union between the gods and Hylians, whereas in Japanese, she specifically defines it as a musubi with kami, who integrated themselves within the fabric of the land and founded the Kingdom of Hyrule, reflecting the interconnected nature of kami in Japanese Shintoism. However, the newly established Hyrule Kingdom faced a dire threat with the awakening of Ganondorf as a demon king, who unleashes his gloom, or Shouki, on the world, in contrast to Breath of the Wild, which primarily focuses on Malice's impact on machinery, like the divine beasts. In Tears of the Kingdom, there is a notable shift in focus towards nature-related abnormal phenomena due to the very nature of what gloom actually is. As mentioned earlier, kami are susceptible to impurity or kegare. Ganondorf's Shouki embodies this impurity, causing havoc in the natural world and leading to the downfall of Rauru, a kami and Zonai king of Hyrule, and ultimately disturbing the balance between the Hylians and Zonai race. To Ganondorf, the Zonai appear as arrogant gods, a trait that greatly infuriates him, echoing the intense hatred Demise in Skyward Sword harbors for the Gods tribe, exclusively in the Japanese text. The word that Demise uses in Japanese to refer to the Gods tribe that he despises so intensely is, very interestingly, the exact same term that the Zonai are also referred to as in the Japanese version of Tears of the Kingdom. In other words, it may be reasonable to infer then that Ganondorf's power, his Shouki that generated kegare and impurities, acted as the blade which erased the coexistence and musubi nature of the Hylians and their kami, the Zonai, disrupting their once harmonious existence in the same world. Thus, the profound power to defile and sever the bond between ordinary mortals and their gods, essentially fulfilling an essence of Demise's hatred, is what the true nature of gloom represents in Tears of the Kingdom.